Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome to where I encourage you to live a healthy life. Anyway, I'm going to introduce myself for those who don't know me and for those who know me good. So my name is Stephanie Agbonkwae, but I'm popularly known as Daughter of Zion. Welcome to another episode. Welcome to another episode of Health Talks. Here I encourage you to live the healthiest life possible because health is wealth. So guys, welcome to another episode of Health Talk. So today we're going to be talking about this topic, and it's also important because it's happening in our day-to-day lives, and we want to make sure that we handle it properly because it has to do with everything that makes us us. Okay, so without wasting much time, I'm going to dive into what brought us here today and who can guess. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about food poisoning. Okay, we're gonna be talking about food poisoning. So please watch this video till the very end. And I know. So talking about foodborne illness, aka food poisoning. What is food poisoning? So food poisoning is the ingestion of food that has been spoiled, food that has been contaminated by either our environment or chemicals in our environment, or it has been contaminated by poor hygienic condition by humans in the course of handling the food preparation. So that is what we call food poisoning or foodborne illness, aka foodborne poisoning. Like I said, foodborne poisoning is the ingestion of food that has been contaminated by bacteria or things around our environment, or food that has been spoiled and abandoned somewhere without your knowledge. You go ahead and consume it. So when you consume that food, there's a certain reaction that your body reacts to because the food has been contaminated and it's not fit or good for consumption. So that is what food poisoning. And guess what? When we talk about food poisoning or food inborne illness, it is very, very important that we talk about this because guess what? CDC, Center of Disease Control, has estimated that about 48 millions of people are getting sick because of contamination of food that has been spoiled or drinks. So when we're talking about food poisoning, we are not talking about only food, we're talking about also drinks, because there's some drinks that they are outdated, they need to be thrown because maybe we bought them with a lot of money, we don't want to waste them away, we feel like it's safe to consume, but it's not. So on this note, I'm encouraging you to please watch out for your environment, the way you handle your food, and also the kind of food that you eat. Also, despite the tremendous or further number of deaths that happens with food poisoning, we also have good news. Food poisoning or foodborne can be avoided. Yes, that's the good news. It can be avoided. How can food poisoning be avoided? There are a lot of ways that food poisoning. Like I said, foodborne illness is completely preventable. What I mean by completely preventable is that it can be prevented if you put across the good measures. So, like I said, we have to take this more seriously because CDC is saying, I did a lot of research, CDC is saying that 48 millions of people are getting sick because of eating contaminated food. So you can estimate how fatal this situation is. But the good news is that let's talk about things that goes wrong when it comes to food poisoning or foodborne illnesses and what's going on. Let's talk about time and temperature. Before we talk about time and temperature, there's something that I want you to understand. Please, we should be mindful of where our food is coming from, the hygienic condition in which we are preparing the food, and also how to serve the food. So when we're talking about food poisoning, we have to make sure, we have to, try to put in place the things that we are not doing right. When we talk about foodborne illness, we're talking about the hygienic condition that you prepare the food, where make sure you know where your materials or your ingredients or your food is coming from. Just because it looks attractive does not mean it's good for consumption. Okay, so please, we want to talk about time and temperature. And before we talk about time and temperature, it is very, very important that you know where the ingredients of your food is coming from. Let's start there. Know where the ingredients of your food is coming from. Know the hygienic condition in which that food was prepared, and also the temperature in which that food was. And I'm just going to say this quickly here. Please, 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 there are ways that we can prevent, as we're talking about the broad topic that is foodborne illness or food poisoning, there are ways. I want to, point out this point, like, to make sure that you're keeping everything safe. There are ways that you can do to prevent germs. or bacteria from getting into your food. And the very first point is that, please, if you are sick, do not handle food preparation, because the possibility of you transferring that illness to the people consuming that food is very, very high. So please, if you are sick, please do not handle food preparation. Let's start from there. And also, please, like I will always say, make sure that you are in an appropriate dress suit. Your hair needs to be covered or needs to be tied with a hairnet. It needs to be covered completely. Your hands needs to be properly washed before you even start touching the ingredients that you have to use to prepare the food. So please, it is important that we know this step before we. So talking about that, one thing I want you to know about time and temperature is that, please make sure that your food is adequately cooked. Make sure that your food is adequately cooked. Because why I said so, this is because there are some food that there's a certain temperature that if that food is not cooked in that temperature or in that time manner, of course there's nothing you can do. The bacteria that are in the food cannot do anything. They're just going to keep multiplying. So please make sure that your foods are adequately cooked in the right temperature and in the right time, because there are some certain foods or there's a certain temperature, certain foods that when you cook in the food has to reach that temperature or that time before the food is considered safe to eat. So you might want to check out before you consume any food. Why I emphasize that food should be cooked at a certain temperature is because we want to prevent any potential pathogens, from being contaminated in the food. We want to make sure that everything is good. I'll give you an example for poultry. Poultry has to be cooked at a temperature of 160 degrees for at least 15 seconds, to kill any bacteria or any other, food poisoning hazard, to get rid or, slow down the rate at which simultaneous poisoning arise. So please, if you're cooking poultry product or any other stuff like that, anything that has to do with poultry, please make sure that it is cooked for at least 160 degrees. And I would say for about 15 seconds. Yeah, I'll say for about 15 seconds, so that it will prevent salmonella poisoning. So you want to bear that in mind, because not everything that looks good is actually properly prepared. Yeah, food has to be properly cooked to, neutralize any potential pathogens that are circulating around the food. Okay, so when we talk about, the temperature at which you can cook or certain foods, now it is important to know the temperature at which you're serving food. Yeah, it is very, very important that we know the temperature at which we serve food. Cold food needs to be served cold, and hot food needs to be served not really hot but warm. So you want to bear that. If your food is supposed to be served warm, not really hot, it must be at the temperature of 135 degrees, I would say so. And if it's a cold food that needs to be served cold, it must be below 41 degrees, I would say so. So please make sure that you're serving food at the right temperature, because there's some certain food that I really don't know what's going to happen, but it has to be served either cold or warm. I don't want to say hot, because it can burn your mouth and something of that nature. Why this is important, why you want to serve food at the right temperature, is because we're trying to avoid the danger zone. And what is the danger zone? The danger zone of food serving, or the temperature of food that needs to be served, the danger zone is in between 41 degrees to 135 degrees. Why is it called a danger zone? It is called a danger zone because in between these 41 degrees and 135 degrees, that is when bacteria multiply 20 times more than its original size. So it is very, very important that we know what time to serve food, the temperature of the food. Like I said, for cold food, it should be below 41 degrees. And for food that needs to be served warm, I'm not going to say hot, for food that needs to be served warm, it has to be 130, at least, this is the minimum, it has to be at least 135 degrees. So to make it look. Also, we also have TCS food. TCS stands for time or temperature controlled or safety food. Okay, unlike protein, carbohydrate, and lipids, there are some foods that don't need to be stored in a particular environment. Let's talk about storage of food now. So food poisoning entails a lot. It entails a whole lot, and I'm just going to make it as brief as possible. So talking about TCS food, that is time or temperature or controlled safety food. There are foods that don't need to be in the refrigerator, like sugar, like flour. It has to be on the shelf or on the counter or somewhere. It is important that we know where and when to keep food in a cold or warm environment, because if you keep food in the wrong environment, it's going to multiply the pathogens or the bacteria in that food or around that environment. For example, if you take food that are supposed to be in the fridge and put it in the counter or in a warm environment, the food is going to be poisonous, because the bacteria that are in that food that are supposed to be slowed down in a cold environment that is favorable for that food is going to be multiplying, and of course it's going to affect us consuming the food. So please make sure that you're keeping food at their corresponding space or where it needs to be kept. Cold food like yogurt, stuff like that, needs to go into the fridge, and foods like sugar, flour, anything that has, you know what I'm talking about. Flour, plantains need to be in the shell. Some people put it in the fridge, but it's still okay. So please know where and when to serve food that needs to be consumed. Maybe in a later date, you want to check out too for that, because all that contributes to food poisoning too. Talking about that, we also have RTE, that's ready to eat food. Ready to eat food are foods that I would say you can eat them in their raw states, depending on the meal you want to prepare. For example, I'll give you a quick example. Let's say carrots. Carrots can be eaten in its raw state. You don't need, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing salad, you don't need to cook the carrot or whatever you've got. So there are different types of way of consuming food, and we also have ready to eat food. Ready to eat food are food that are already eatable in their original form or in their raw form. It's eatable in their raw form, and such food, depending on the meal you want to prepare. If you want to prepare, let's say, vegetable sauce or vegetable whatever you're doing, okay, you can boil the carrot. But let's say you're using carrot for salad, you don't need to. You can eat it in its raw state. Eating it in its raw state means it has to be properly washed. Yeah, it has to be properly washed in order to make it clean and fit for human consumption. So talking about that, let's talk about contaminated equipment. I know in a busy kitchen, we all get busy. Of course, I'm a woman, I do cook for myself and my family. So please, talking about contaminated equipment, we have to be organized, we have to be extremely clean, we have to be organized, and we have to be vigilant, especially us the women. When it comes to cooking in the kitchen, please be vigilant, because there's something that we call cross-contamination. You can use a spoon to do something, and you take that same spoon, maybe use a spoon to, you can use a spoon maybe to eat or to taste something, and you put the spoon in your mouth, and then you take the spoon out of your mouth, you stir the entire pot of soup or sauce or whatever you're doing. That's cross-contamination, because you took bacteria from your mouth and it's all over the pot of soup or whatever you got going. So please, let's be mindful of our environment. I know the kitchen sometimes may be busy, and also when we talk about cross-contamination, if you use a cutting board to, let's say, to chop onions or whatever thing it might be, please make sure you wash that cutting board properly to reuse it for the next ingredients. Don't just mix everything together. That's cross-contamination. You want to be extra careful, and you want to be vigilant in handling food preparation. It is very, very important. If we have to avoid foodborne illness, or aka food poisoning, it has to start from the Genesis right up to the Revelation. Nothing is being ignored. Nothing should be left out. From your organization, you have to be vigilant, and you have to sensitize the environment. Make sure everywhere is clean. Make sure your hands are clean before you even start. Before you even start cooking, you have to properly wash your hands. Make sure you have an apron, or your hair needs to be tied. All this contributes to avoiding food poisoning. It's not just eating food that has been kept in the fridge, it's the process. So we have to be vigilant too for that. So without talking about that, let's talk about approved source. I usually tell people, do not take expiration date for granted. Please, make sure your ingredients that you're buying is coming from an approved source. It can be approved by the government or the regulation or the regulatory system or source of government in that area. Make sure that your food or the ingredients you're eating has been approved by the state, by the government in your locality. Please take note of expiration date. There is a reason why food or canned food or whatever food you're eating has an expiration date. I don't know if it's the ingredients, I don't know if it's canned food, I don't know if it's whatever. Please make sure that your food or your ingredients that you're using to cook is coming from an approved source. Make sure you know where the food is coming from. You don't just want to go to the store and buy, oh, tomatoes is tomatoes, oh, carrot is carrot. Make sure that it's coming from an approved source, and please make sure that you're taking note of expiration date. Expiration date is gonna kill you more faster, because those ingredients or those chemicals that they use to formulate the ingredients that you're using to cook, it expires on that date. So after that date, you're consuming it at your own weeks. So please, you don't want to consume product at your own weeks to that extent. Make sure that please, I beg you, you are reading expiration date. Spend the money and save your health. That's all what I'm going to tell you when it comes to that. Okay, I'm going to list you guys 3 categories of food contamination. So when we talk about categories of food contamination, we're talking about where food can be contaminated to, other than our surface environment, cleanliness, and whatever. So let's talk about there are 3 categories of food contamination. We have biological. Biological is bacteria, pathogens that contaminate the foods. So that's the first point when it comes to categories of contamination. We have biological, that is bacteria, pathogens that contaminate our food or the environment which we live. And then we also have what we call physical contamination. Physical contamination is hair. When somebody wants to eat food and they see hair, that's contamination. That's why I keep telling people, if you're a server, if you're working in the kitchen, your hair needs to be tied with a net. It needs to be covered up. Put on an apron, look nice. So physical contamination is gonna be hair. When you want to eat, you see hair in the food, that's contamination. You see nails. Some people do have pretty much long nails. You want to trim them if you're handling food. Food poisoning is for real, so you want to take all this precaution. Okay, physical contamination, we talk about hair, we talk about nails. There are also what do you call it, stones, unpolished hair, hair from whatever, all this artificial stuff. Please bear in mind that you're serving somebody's food. I've seen a case where a server served food. Unfortunately, a wife served the husband, and the husband ate, and there was sponge. The sponge that we use to wash dishes was found in the food, and it keeps degenerating and deteriorating the husband's stomach until you have to get to a point where they have to operate the husband in order to remove those particles of sponge, hair, broken glasses. Please be vigilant. Broken glasses, nails, cortex, what have you. So please, you handle food. And then the third category of food contamination is chemicals. Chemicals such as bleach, pesticide, that some of maybe the apartment or the houses is affected with pests, and you just take the pest spray and you spray it all over without taking into consideration that you have food on the surface that may be contaminated. So we call that chemical contamination. Chemical contamination comes from the word chemicals, the chemicals that are around your surface. We have pesticide, we have bleach, there are so many of them, you name the rest. So please, you want to watch out for your environment too. So now let's talk about ways to prevent food contamination. Ways to prevent food contamination, the first is by washing your hands. And let me demonstrate, or let me tell you how to wash your hands. It has to be from a running water, and you have to wet your hands first in the running water. When you wet your hand, you apply soap. You want to rub for about 15 to 20 seconds. Wash in between your nails and what have you. Make sure you're getting everything out. Make sure you're washing your hands properly in a running water. And after washing your hands properly, you want to make sure you pack dry your hands. Also, take a paper towel to pack dry your hands. And also, let me give you all this good news. Oh, I don't know if it's good news or however you want to take it. Where you wash your hands, the sink that you wash your hands should not be used in handling food preparation ingredients. That is to tell you that where you wash your hands before cooking, it should be different. The sink that you wash your hands should be different from the sink that maybe you wash your ingredients that you want to use to cook food. Where you wash tomatoes, when you wash leafy greens, whatever have you. Please, where you wash your hands should be different from where food preparation is being done. Like where you wash your food ingredients that you want to use to cook. So now, having said that, let's talk about how long is cooked food safe to be consumed. So how long? So I use this rule. first in, first out. We're talking about storage of food, and after storage of food, when you store food in the refrigerator, is it safe to consume? At what particular time is safe to consume that same food again? So I go by this first in, first out. What I mean by first in, first out is that the food that you put first in the refrigerator should be the food that you take out first to consume. There is no point in piling cooking food. I understand we all get a busy schedule. There's no point in piling cooking food and keeping them in the refrigerator, and you don't even eat them. You go about cooking others. It doesn't make no sense. If it's not fit for consumption, it should be thrown away. So I would go by these: the first in, first out. The food that you first put it in, it has to be the first food that will come out. And also, let's talk about, let's say you cook. How long should the food stay or circulate or get cool before you put it in the fridge or in the refrigerator? So please, I would say 2 hours at most. 2 hours, and it should be put in the fridge as soon as possible when it cool. 2 hours, I would say. Please make sure that when you finish cooking your food, it should sit to cool. At least the maximum should be at least 2 hours to make it safe or cool down for you to put it in the fridge or in the refrigerator. So let's talk about this last point before I move on. How long? I keep getting this question, Stephanie. How long should food in the refrigerator is safe to eat? I would say maximum 3 to 4 days. If you cook food, you put it in the refrigerator, at least 3 to 4 days is safe to be is a little bit safe to be consumed. I don't want to say totally safe to be consumed. 3 to 4 days is a little bit safe to be consumed. But please, I would say 1 to 3 days, because on the 4th day, the bacteria increase by 4,000 in 20 minutes. By the 4th day. So I would say food is safe to eat from the refrigerator. I would say from 1 to 4 days at most, because on the 3rd day, the bacteria in the food start multiplying, double its size, or double its number of bacteria in the food. It start multiplying. So I would say 1 to 3 days food is safe to eat in the fridge. But if it has to pass 4 days, please throw it away. And I also want you to make use of your senses. If you take out a food from the refrigerator and it smells bad, it don't have to look bad before you know that it's bad. If it's been in the fridge for more than 2 days, 3, going to 4 days, and you take it out, you can make use of your senses. If you smell the food and it smells bad, even though it looks good, throw it away. 4th day is kind of I would say 1 to 3 days. 4th day is kind of skeptical. You want to really think about that. And also it depends the types of food, because some food get easily mold easily, and some their bacteria keep multiplying rapidly. So please, 1st to the 3rd day is safe. The 4th day, the bacteria start multiplying. So please, you want to bear that in mind. And also, please make use of your senses. If you take out the food from the refrigerator and it smells bad, please, no matter how good the food is, no matter how nice looking and attractive the food might still look, it's high time to throw it away. So guys, thank you for watching. That's all what I have for you today. Food poisoning is for real. Please, let's take this serious, because we can do all the precautions in this world. We can see a doctor. We can, we can be thinking we are living a healthy life, but you don't know what is killing you might be your food. And it's something that is preventable. It's something that might never happen if you follow the proper hygienic condition and all what it takes to make that food look healthy or feel or safe for you to consume. Food poisoning is for real. Let's handle food in a hygienic condition. Be vigilant of stones, hair, broken glasses in food. Please pay attention, and please avoid cross contamination. Make sure your hands are clean. Make sure your food is not stayed in the refrigerator for more than 4 days. If you take it out even on the 2nd day and it smells bad, please throw it away. It doesn't worth it. It doesn't worth your health. So please take it away. That's all what I have for you guys. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and please share the video, like, comment. Let me know what you think on the comment section below. Comment, like, share the video, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. I'll see you all next week. Thanks for watching. God bless you.